good morning, everybody. Welcome, Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, buddy. How was your weekend?
Good. Still, trying to rest up and get that pinched nerve back in shape. It's as good as it's felt, which is good. I can actually walk without a lot of discomfort. So this is definitely a process. How about you?
You've got your nerve. I've got my ankle, which is a constant. And I'm to the point now where just being a guy that can't pull the trigger on it because, it'll get better on its own.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have to go in and get it, have a good look taken at it. It's starting to bother me now. So,
well, do you need a chiro guy, or are you going to go to somebody else?
No, I think that I'm going to need probably an orthopedic to take a good long look at it. I've got some things going on that make it kind of unusual, and I've had absolutely no improvement in the last 6 months. So, whatever.
Geez. Yeah, I think it's about time. This could affect the, the senior pickleball tour.
Yeah, the archaic pickleball tour. Isn't that the truth? The kind of, hey, I'm sure now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh well, so it goes.
Well, we should talk about that because I know some people that might be able to help you out.
Good.
How's that?
All right.
Okay. Hey, real quick, want to tell you about the Sportsbook Bar and Grill. Yes, the basketball season is over, and so is the hockey season, but soccer season is going on right now. You want to watch some rugby? You want to watch some UFC? The Sportsbook Bar and Grill is the place to watch all sports. Remember, this particular bar was founded by hardcore sports fans. So if you were ever going to design a bar, I think that Judson and Jeremy and John have hooked you up to a place where you would want to go, because this is how you would set it up yourself. Outstanding food. As I told you, I order out from there. I do pickup from there, carry out from there, because I think it's that good. I mean, how many people do you know that say, I love the wings at Hooters? Well, how many times do you go through their drive-through? Even if they have one. I guess the wings aren't that good. A place is good if indeed you get food from there and you don't sit down and eat. That's how amazing it is. The egg rolls are awesome. The Philly cheesesteak egg rolls I've told you about too many times. The cheese curds, all kinds of great burgers and wings, sauces. Sportsbook Bar and Grill. You can find them in the DTC. You can find them in my home location in Highlands Ranch, or opening soon in Parker. Time now for the lead.
The Lead is presented by Sasquatch Casino, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Free agency begins at 4 p.m. today. How active do you think the Nuggets will be at all?
Not very. In fact, I will be surprised if they do anything. I think they are pretty much hanging their hat and hopes on David Adelman, the new head coach, having enough good relationship with the group that he has coming back, and finding a way to get more out of the guys that to this point have not been able to deliver what this team needs in order to take care of quality depth. So to me, I think it's kind of an all or nothing. David Adelman gets this out of guys, and somehow they stay more healthy than they did at the end of last year, which, as you and I know, is always a throw of the dice. But I think that's what they're kind of pinning their hopes on, very simply.
Okay, so the legacy of Calvin Booth will remain for at least this season and next season. I'm talking about all the young guys that he drafted. 3 years from now, who is proven to be right? Michael Malone for not playing these guys, or Calvin Booth, where he could say, you should have played these guys?
Boy, I wish I knew, because frankly, in the
Bruce, this is a podcast.
Yeah.
Give a crazy opinion. That's what people are expecting us to do anyway. Give a hot take. Give me something. Don't say we don't know, because of course we don't know. What's your opinion?
I haven't seen anything in the last 2 years that would lead me to believe that suddenly someone's going to turn the corner. That's the hope that they're pinning it on right now. Practical history, recentism tells me, okay, I mean, these guys flash every now and then. And really, when you get down to it, Strother is the only guy that's really flat. The only guy that you look at thinking, okay, I can imagine some possibilities. So no, I guess that the odds would be probably fairly long that it happens. And Eric, they need to hit on more than one guy. I mean, if Julian Strother, okay, so if Julian Strother comes up aces, great. They can be a better team with him coming off the bench. All right, that's fine. But you got to have more than that. They swung and missed at this exact time a year ago on Saric. I mean, he provided absolutely nothing for this basketball team. So I think that they've got to get more than just a little bit from one guy. I can say that.
Well, maybe Julian Strother has a breakout.
Maybe.
But if he does that mean they don't look to re-sign Christian Braun, who will command 20 to 30 million a year? I think that's a decision that is over the horizon right now. But when I look at the guys who are available in free agency, do you think they will forgo? How will you feel going into the season knowing they haven't truly fortified their bench with any type of significant move with a veteran to play one of the top three guys off the bench? I'll just throw some names at you. Ty Jerome could be available. He might be a little too expensive. Taurean Prince, a guy who's a good defensive player at times, has good length, really good three-point shooter. We know about Bruce Brown. Luke Kennard, dude could drill threes, not great defensively. Doug McDermott, he is old. You could get him for sure.
And he's a shooter only. Right.
What's that?
Shooter only.
Right. And you know what? When I think of Doug McDermott, by the way, a guy the Nuggets originally drafted. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I did. Okay. Yeah, I actually was. Yes.
I'm just kind of wondering if they bring in a guy like Doug McDermott, does he turn into towel-waving Mike Miller all over again?
Well, he's got to be a lot better. Anything's got to be better than what they've gotten out of Dario Saric. So, and I don't mean to beat a dead dog, but that's a guy that's living off of the fat of his contract and not contributing anything that I'm aware of for this basketball team. Look, there is very much a feeling, even though they've got two guys now running the one job that Calvin Booth did. So you've got, Tenzer and Wallace now running the front office, and you've got a brand new coach. Other than that, and that's significant. Although, what are the two? What are Tenzer and Wallace going to do? Unless they're willing to roll into the second apron, they're not going to do much of anything at all.
Well, no, they have the mid-level exception, and those guys I just rattled off. You could probably bring in some of those guys at the mid-level exception, which is roughly about $5.7 million per season. You could do it for one guy. I think Bruce Brown would like to come back. I don't know if he has $5.7 million reasons to come back. Right? I think he would probably want more. But I can tell you right now, if for some reason the Nuggets bring in Bruce Brown, I don't think that Nuggets fans will say unanimously, Nuggets are back. They're going to be a serious contender again. Bruce Brown doesn't move the needle that much for me, but he does. But he's like a comfortable pair of jeans. You know who he is. You know he loves the organization. He knows the guys in the organization well. They love him as much as he loves them. But you're wondering, are they missing a piece? But if they bring in Brown, then I think you've taken up 6 through 8 on the bench. One guy. Who are the other two going to be? And when you talk about what have we learned, you bring up the word flash. We saw Julian Strother flash in a single playoff game, and he had a couple of good games after, more than a few couple games after that, but nothing of any consistency.
Right, exactly.
But when I look at Peyton Watson and Julian Strother and Pickett and so on and so forth, Hunter Tyson, when you watched Christian Braun, you could see an offensive and a defensive game, believing, okay, this guy will likely get better. When I see Peyton Watson, I haven't seen enough offensive improvement over the years. Jalen Pickett, haven't seen enough. Strother, haven't seen enough on defense. And it's not like these guys were all rookies last year, because they weren't.
No. The last two guys are going into their third year as pros.
Right.
I mean, we still haven't seen it from either Strother or Pickett. So Tyson, I think, to me, is a guy that, unless something comes up from him that heretofore hasn't even been imagined, then I wouldn't count on him. It has a feel for me, Eric, even though you're talking about two new guys now doing the job for one in the front office and a new head coach, it feels very much to me like rolling it back with the same familiar faces. Like Josh maybe really believes that they're close, that they are right there. Okay, fine, I guess. Every year that you go on and can't advance in the playoffs with the world's best player is another year closer to losing that best player, either by just age catching up with him or by the frustration of not doing enough to put pieces around him. Nikola Jokic, you can argue whether it was an emotional moment after the series against Oklahoma City, has already stated his belief. They are not good enough to win a championship.
So if they do not bring in someone with the money that they have, and they don't have a lot, if they don't bring in a Bruce Brown, if they can't find a way to pry Taurean Prince away from the Milwaukee Bucks, Ty Jerome, let's say he's going to be way too expensive, whatever.
Yeah,
if
I
they
hear you.
basically roll it back, and you are Nikola Jokic, and you've already planted your flag, and this organization really doesn't do a lot, what are you thinking heading into next offseason if they get bounced out of, say, the second round again?
I would be concerned at that point.
Yeah.
Look, you do have David Adelman, who on a fairly significant level reached this basketball team, helped get them into the second round, helped get them to a game 7 in the second round against the eventual champions, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard that, but there was some success. They obviously, they had a relatability factor that was significant. Can that continue to evolve and develop? Can the minor or major, I don't know, tweaking that David Adelman wants to do with this roster that Michael Malone either couldn't or wouldn't do with this roster, is that enough to put this thing back up on a hill where it's like, okay, you got to take care of the Denver Nuggets? That remains to be seen, but that's what they're counting on.
A couple
more
of
than
side
anything.
notes.
Yeah.
A couple of side notes. Did you read Bennett Dorado's article on Ben Tenzer over the weekend on how he learned basically at the foot of Arn Tellem?
No, I did not.
Tremendous.
I will look it up.
Arn Tellem, his son, and Ben Tenzer were very close growing up. Said actually in the article, and I don't know if it was tongue in cheek, that Ben Tenzer spent so much time at Arn Tellem's house that he could have qualified for a residency there. Now, I don't know how true that is, but the point is they spent a lot of time together. So for as much concern as people might have about Ben Tenzer, a guy who started as an intern, worked his way up, again, the best story I can tell you, if you think the Ben Tenzer story is good, about a guy being an intern and moving up, and there are lots of examples of that, I'm guessing the name Jim Walton means nothing to you. And it's not the Walton family. Although, you know what? Now that I think about it, it wouldn't surprise me if it is. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it might be the Walton family. So when I worked at CNN, the president of CNN Sports was Jim Walton.
Yeah.
He eventually became the president of all of CNN, the whole thing. He started as an intern.
Right. Well, there's a guy in Oklahoma City named Mark Daigneault, who is the head coach of the world champion Oklahoma City Thunder, who started as a video assistant at the University of Connecticut. Look, I cheer for guys that have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, that have started with very humble beginnings and have built their careers into something. I cheer for that. I really do. And I think that people that are dismissive, I think it's easier to be dismissive of how are two guys going to get along doing the job of one, or at least traditionally around the NBA and even with the Nuggets, the job of one. I have an issue with that. I want to know how the communication works, who gets the last word, how do they parse out differences of opinion on
the
players.
last word is Josh Kroenke.
Right, and it should be.
Well, here's the difference. Josh Kroenke, I don't look at him as a meddling owner.
Right, at all.
Josh Kroenke does understand basketball.
Yep.
At the end of the day, any mid-level to major move will have to be approved by ownership. I don't care what sport it is. But with Josh Kroenke, he might be involved even in the small decisions. Or do you think Josh Kroenke gives these guys enough leash to make minor moves without some big powwow?
Based on what Josh Kroenke has said, and is almost mea culpa for the way that things finished out this season, I think that he will be very hands-on. And I think he probably needs to be hands-on.
Okay, so this would be, and I've seen this criticism before, and it is fair. You happen to be the New York Knicks, and you want to trade one of your players, and maybe the Nuggets have some assets that you like. Are you calling Tenzer, Wallace, or Kroenke as your first phone call?
That is a conundrum for which I have no answer.
Right, and that in itself is potentially the problem, because you could call Wallace and he can say one thing, and then you go to Tenzer, who's above him, he may say something else.
Right.
There's no uniformity on all of this.
Yeah, and we just don't know how it's supposed to work at this point. I'm sure Josh has his in his mind.
Yeah.
And he used the term, it's unconventional. That's how we are. Great, no problem. The proof needs to be in the pudding. I need to see it work. It's not a setup that we normally are used to. It could work. It remains to be seen, but they got to prove it.
There is a difference, by the way, between this three-headed monster and the three-headed monster the Nuggets had before you arrived here. For those that don't remember, the three-headed monster was Mark Workentine, who basically held Tenzer's role. Okay. Mark Workentine came with a lot of experience. UNLV, helped build the Portland Trailblazers, then helped build the Nuggets. I won't get too far down in the weeds, but he learned at the feet of Jerry Tarkanian, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, doing things above board. Then helped build the Trailblazers. Back then, they were known as the Jailblazers. And then Workentine oversaw the Thuggets, which eventually became known as the Nuggets, which became known as the Thuggets. That was the guy running the show in theory. Rex Chapman, a little bit more silent, right?
Yeah.
But then you had Brett Barrett. For those that don't know who Brett Barrett is, probably one of Stan Kroenke's closest friends at the time. Brett was involved in a lot of things, from the Avalanche to the Rams to a whole bunch of things. He was a jack of all trades, terrific guy. Brett and Mark both had pretty strong personalities. Okay.
Yeah.
Rex, maybe not as much. I think the difference between that setup and this setup is I think Tenzer and Wallace aren't strong personalities. Right. That's why I think that they can get along.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's a good starting place.
And I'm not saying those
can
guys
we get along.
I'm not saying those guys didn't get along.
Right.
But when you have really strong opinion guys, it can be one of those things where it can be uncomfortable. Listen, workplace tension is good if it's going to build to something better. I understand that. I don't know how it worked between the three of them. It would seem to me, listening to those two guys talk, there'd be a lot of give and take with the voice not being raised at the decibel level as you're standing on the tarmac at DIA. But I digress. I want to take a hard right turn here. Is Michael Malone going to get a job?
It's a great question.
I mean, you would have thought that he would be a shoo-in for the Knicks. And from what I understand, what I've heard and what I've read, I don't even know if he's got an interview or if he's even being considered.
There hasn't been any indication that he's even had a conversation. Now,
Yeah.
maybe he's picked up the phone once or twice, but nothing official has come out of there. That surprises me.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about a guy that has proven his ability not only to build the franchise, and all you got to do is go back and look at what Michael Malone did in terms of building his wins year to year. He was very he was very deliberate about how he did it. And then he kept the franchise competitively at the top for a period of time that gave them a chance to win multiple championships. Now they won one. It didn't go well at the end. Most coaching jobs don't go well at the end. It ends for everyone in every sport, one way or the other. There are very few mic drop moments of guys going out on their own terms.
Who are considered in the last 50 years the two best coaches in NBA history? Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich had to step down because of health, and Phil Jackson basically got fired.
Right.
You're talking about the two greatest.
And it happens to the absolute best. It's almost cliched. You get hired to be fired. That's the way it is in professional sports. It's going to happen somewhere. The biggest question for me is, can David Adelman get something out of this group, which I think we feel like is going to be a very similar group, much to my consternation in terms of Michael Porter Jr., who had a birthday yesterday. So happy birthday, belatedly. I thought that he would be, and maybe they did, maybe they have tried to move him, and the finances just don't make it possible.
Let's, for the sake of argument, put this season into perspective.
Sure.
At least for me. We're going to know this season if they're going to blow it up or not. Meaning, Michael Porter Jr. will have a year left on his deal.
Right.
Christian Braun up for an extension. Let's see what these young guys can do. Because if this turns into not the type of season we were hoping for with Jokic, maybe this year isn't the year to blow the whole thing up because you really haven't tried to see if it's any good. This year they're going to. And this year we're going to learn a lot about what the direction of this franchise will be once this season is over. Coming up after the break, great article on NFL.com. Bucky Brooks, a terrific writer, wrote an article basically entitled, My Long Shot for Off-Season Awards. MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. He has one Bronco on there as his long shot for a major award. Who is that long shot? Are you going to stick around after the break? Bruce, are you?
I'll be here. I've got an idea.
You have to. Your name is on the mast of the show.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Talk to you in a bitsy, Miss Mitzi. Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a pair of Spider Cruisers or over $15,000 in cash the weekend of July 18th, just in time for the Sturgis Bike Rally in South Dakota. That's right, your choice, cruisers or $15,000 in cash. Get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. to midnight during their daily cash drawing with a locked-up jackpot of $100 or more. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, loose slots, great promotions, great food, and a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. And don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corned bake. Man, you gotta try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Ferguson's Heating and Cooling is the best in Denver, and their customers agree. Ferguson's has 165 5-star Google reviews, and here's one from Betsy. Highly professional, prompt, and honest. I switched to Ferguson's when I became aware my former company was trying to sell me a whole new system I didn't need. Ferguson's is an honest, working, family-owned business that'll give you a fair price, the highest quality parts and equipment, and they always show up on time. You can trust the Ferguson family like you trust your own family. Go to fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Spice up your next night out at Nola Jane and Lodo. Authentic Cajun cuisine like andouille sausage gumbo with dirty rice, crawfish etouffee, as well as 6 different po' boys like soft-shell crab and shrimp. Come in before or after a game at Ball Arena. Host a party or party on their rooftop deck overlooking Market Street during happy hour from 11 a.m. to 5. Plus, Nola Jane caters, delivers, and the kitchen is open late night. Make Nola Jane your new favorite spot to eat, drink, and party like it's Mardi Gras.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar. Welcome back. Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl. Want to tell you about Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos. We've been telling you about this promotion for a long time, and it's coming up fast. And they're pairing it with the Sturgis Bike Rally that is coming up as well. So Sasquatch and Wildcard giving away a pair of Spider Cruisers or $15,000 in cash the weekend of July 18th. So how do you win? How do you get involved? Get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. until midnight during their daily cash drawings with a locked up jackpot of $100 or more. I've won that. Not hard to do. Really loose slots at Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos. Great food as well. They're a family-owned casino that treats you like family. Time now for What's Trending.
What's Trending is presented by Ferguson's Heating and Cooling. Your family should trust the Ferguson family for all your heating and cooling needs, and you'll see why they have over 165 5-star Google reviews. Make an appointment today at fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Bucky Brooks wrote an article for NFL.com titled Long Shot Picks for Major NFL Awards, which would include the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie Offensive Player of the Year, yada, yada, yada. With that, Brooks named R.J. Harvey at 22-1 odds as his long shot to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. This is what he wrote. When Sean Payton decided to draft Harvey in round 2, he likely envisioned the former UCF standout thriving in an Alvin Kamara type of role. Harvey can create mismatches in a variety of spots depending on his pre-snap alignment. He's too quick and shifty for linebackers in space, but he also flashes enough pop and power to run through arm tackles going through a hole. Gritty runner, little pizzazz. He is a do-it-all playmaker Peyton covets as a feature back in his diverse offensive system. Given his potential workload and supporting cast, Harvey could put up eye-popping numbers for a team on the rise. What kind of numbers do you think Harvey has to have to win this award? And do you think he could win this award?
Yes. I think that he will be used in a highly productive type of way because I do think that it fits very much what Sean Payton imagines from his running back, and he's got a very successful history of running backs and making running backs work. Look, if R.J. Harvey hits like Bo Nix did, and I'm not talking about apples to apples, but in a similar fashion. If he's as much of a surprise as for some Bo Nix was, then the Broncos are going to be right where they want to be come January. They're going to be right where they want to be. Because to me, R.J. Harvey and Evan Engram are the two guys that they brought in specifically to plug the holes that they did not have taken care of, not only last year, but for the last couple of years. Haven't had a playmaking running back, haven't had a playmaking tight end, haven't had a running back that can create mismatches in space, haven't had a tight end that can control the middle of the field and gain yards after the catch. So, yes, in terms of numbers, I would say that he would probably have to approach, I'd say he'd have to be in the 900 to 1,100 range, 900 to 1,000, but his receiving numbers are going to be the key.
Okay.
That's going to be the key.
So does he win if he puts up exactly the same numbers as Bucky Irving did, who was a rookie last year for Tampa? Rushed for 1,100 yards, rushed for 8 touchdowns, caught 47 passes for nearly 400 yards. Now, that's a pretty good rookie season. Unfortunately, you're in the same rookie class as Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
For RJ Harvey, he is not in the same quarterback class.
No.
Unless you believe the kid who got drafted by Tennessee #1 overall is going to put up a huge season. Unless you believe Shedeur Sanders is going to put up a huge season, or Omarion Hampton puts up a huge season, or Travion Henderson. There is just less competition for RJ Harvey, which you can make the case makes it a plausible bet at 22 to 1, because he doesn't have the same quarterback competition like Irving did with Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Drake May, yada, yada, yada. The smart money says put a flyer on it.
Sure, no question about it. If you're telling me that he gets Bucky Irving money or yards, right, and production in his first year, then I will take that right now. I will take that to the bank right this second. Right? And I think there's a possibility. They're very similar kinds of backs. There are a lot of similarities, and in fact, I know that Bucky Irving was a guy that Sean Payton really liked. It just, it wasn't they weren't in a place to go after a player like that. So I'll be very interested to see. But yeah, and Eric, you and I have been out there a lot. There is nothing from RJ Harvey right now that would make you say, this guy's a project. Right. What you're looking at when you look at RJ Harvey, granted, without taking a hit, but just in terms of what he does and how he does it, the quickness, the ability to move, the pivot, and the hands that he has shown, these types of things, he seems to be a guy that they can count on from day one. Now, we find out a lot starting in 3 weeks.
Okay, I'm going to try and not talk to you like you have been working your entire life. You've built a pretty good retirement. You love to travel, yada, yada. You have money in the bank. Alex, come back into the conversation here if you would. Okay? Because you are not the same age Bruce and I are. So if I said I'm going to give you $100, it's not to say $100 isn't a lot of money to neither Bruce or I, but you're just starting your career. With that, if I said to you, I'm going to give you $100, you can either pocket that money, all right, or you have to bet all 100 on Bo Nix to win the MVP at 75 to 1 odds. What would you do?
I would pocket the money. I would absolutely pocket the money. 75 to 1 odds is enticing, but there's way too many other candidates that I would pick before Nix. I would pocket that $100 and be happy with it.
Bruce, let's say I don't want to say in Alex's position because I don't want to sound like I'm picking on Alex.
No,
but we're different financial points in our life. I mean,
sure,
I'm almost 57. You're almost 73. Alex, I think, is almost 14. So we're in very different situations right now.
Right.
Would you bet 50? But would you take a $25 flyer on Bo Nix?
Oh, yeah.
75 to 1.
Absolutely.
I would too.
I'd take a flyer on him. No question. Yeah.
And I'm actually thinking of doing it, not because I necessarily think that he's going to win, but I think he's the type of guy that could win.
If things, and it's an if with a capital I and an F right now, but if you believe that Sean Payton has put together the type of offense where there all of a sudden aren't any weaknesses and there are no holes. And they've plugged the gaps that they had for the gaping gaps that they had in the running back and the tight end position a year ago. If you believe in all of that and believe that Bo Nix will continue to take a step forward, which, by the way, I have no reason to think that he won't, and to think that the offense will be that much better for him operating in a second year with his added knowledge and confidence, but also these players. I think he's a really good flyer bet. No question about it.
Now, last year, Pat Surtain was 155 to 1.
Wow.
To win the Defensive Player of the Year award. This year, he's 33 to 1 and tied, according to FanDuel, with Nick Bonitto. This is not a knock on Pat Surtain with what I'm about to say. No edge rusher outside of maybe Trey Hendrickson had a lights out season. Listen, how many cornerbacks have won Defensive Player of the Year over the last 20, 25 years? Yeah. He and Stephon Gilmore.
That's it.
It is a
short list.
It is a pass rush type of awards, but no one was like, whoa. Not a knock on Surtain. I'm not saying he wasn't the best defensive player in the league last year, and I'm not saying he won it by default, but no one had this great year. I mean, Myles Garrett finished in third place. You could give it to Myles Garrett pretty much every year. Yeah. With that, who would you bet on, Bonitto or Surtain?
Bonitto. I think I'd bet on Bonitto. Pat had a iconic moment last year, the interception for a return against the Raiders. So he had that moment, which previously, in 2 years previous, he hadn't really had. So he had that kind of moment. And you're absolutely right. There were no real – where do we always start to look when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year? We're always looking at that. Always looking
at that. And Hendrickson had 17 and a half.
Right. So –
But who had a better year? I mean, you got to add it all up. Sacks, pressures, tackles, all of the game-changing plays. You know, how many plays were made when there was some serious leverage on the line? My concern about Surtain betting on him is, this is going to sound nuts because I feel like I'm talking about Nikola Jokic. Are you really going to give a defensive back this award 2 years in a row?
Well, you just talked about it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, already. And this position just doesn't win this award.
Right.
I mean, when it's two guys in the last 20 some years, that gives you a pretty good idea of where corners look. What's the cliche? You can never have enough corners. Okay, I would amend that to say you can never have enough playmaking corners. But is Pat Surtain a playmaking corner? Well, not in the traditional sense. Like Champ was a playmaking corner.
But hold on, let me cut you off there.
Sure.
Okay, he was a playmaking corner, and they threw at Champ as much as they threw at Pat Surtain.
Right. So, I mean, so you don't take anything away from what Pat Surtain does, because just being Pat Surtain, he essentially takes away a third of the field. So how do you quantify that? How do you say, well, what's that really worth? Well, anything that shrinks the field for an offense is worth a hell of a lot, but it's not great interceptions for, like Aqib used to give us, interceptions for touchdowns. I mean, that's not Patrick Surtain's MO. His deal is shut down, close it down, be effective, and it gives you immediately your defense a better position to go and win a game.
By the way, we have two big stories coming up in the next 2 days, which will help us survive the rocky season that we're trying to avoid talking about. So tomorrow we have the start of NBA free agency. Mm-hmm. And Tuesday, let me rephrase that. Today is the start of NBA. And tomorrow it's the NHL.
Right.
A great article in the Denver Post. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow on what the Avs could do at the start of free agency, or maybe they would be smarter to hold off because of the way money accrues if you don't spend it now, because it's worth a heck of a lot more in February at the trade deadline. To put this in perspective, according to the article, if the Avalanche decide to spend $1 million on a player, according to this article, tomorrow, that'll be worth $4.5 million at the trade deadline. One way to put it, Charlie Coyle, as an example, they never could have signed him. They never could have signed him at the start of free agency last year. But because they acquired him at the trade deadline, they had the money to acquire him. So what do the Avalanche do? And they just traded Coyle and Miles Wood. So what do? Do they wait and go with what they have? Or do they try and fortify and get a third line center right now and maybe a fifth or sixth defenseman? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We will talk about that tomorrow. With that, Bruce, and everybody watching, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make it the best possible day you can.